legislature. We got you.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Joanne Lynch. I'm from Kings Park. I am here today because I am asking you not to ban access to kratom in Suffolk County. I am not here as a lobbyist or a business owner. I am here as a patient and a constituent who found something that helped me manage a condition that significantly affected my quality of life. I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. My doctor prescribed me pain and antispasmodic medication. They didn't work. My abdominal spasms were still so bad. My feet hitting the floor would trigger them. I was in agony and had trouble even leaving the house. I tried Tylenol and ibuprofen for years, but they barely worked and caused more intestinal bleeding. Then I found a documentary, A Leaf of Faith, about kratom and a man wrecked with pain after years of bodybuilding. The documentary explained kratom is in the coffee family. It brings on better focus, more efficient pain relief, and no addictive or withdrawal properties. If you take more than your body can handle, your body will reject it, literally throw up. So there's no history of overdose. To me, kratom was life-changing. It helped reduce my intestinal spasms and allow me to rise above the fog of pain I endured. That discovery was almost 10 years ago and has brought back a quality of life I've never thought I could have again. I am a long-term responsible adult user of this herbal supplement. It's been life-changing. Kratom has been the only treatment that I need, eliminating the usual cocktail of medications. I understand that any substance that affects the body deserves responsible discussion. There are concerns about product quality, contamination, and misuse. Those concerns should be addressed through education and study, not by removing access to everyone. A blanket ban does not eliminate demand. Kratom is a natural alternative to the pain epidemic. The FDA has been actively trying to ban kratom because it replaces dangerous and addictive opiates and has been known to help people with alcohol and drug addiction. But most of all, the FDA cannot patent kratom because it is a natural herbal supplement. It's a leaf that's been utilized for pain relief for over 2,000 years. It's a natural alternative to prescription medication, where prescription medication often comes with life-threatening dependency and side effects. Most of us know the devastation that legal prescribed opiates have done to us. Addicting and fatal, the opiates have destroyed lives. Kratom is safe. There's been no reports of kratom by itself causing death in the thousands of years it's been used. It has multiple benefits, and it helps with more focus. People can go to kava bars and enjoy it as an alternative to alcohol at a bar. And since I don't drink, I would rather have the freedom to be able to make that choice. Kratom has changed the lives of countless people.
Thank you, ma'am. So your time is up. Legislator Mazzarella has a question for you.
Sure, absolutely.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm over here.
Okay, I'm sorry, yes.
Sure, no, I'm a sponsor of the bill. I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Absolutely,
and,
yes,
if,
please.
You know, if you want to have your own privacy and not answer them, feel free. But, you know, because we've been up here for a couple of months at this. We're trying to get it right.
Yeah.
So my questions are this. So first of all, how do you consume kratom?
It's a powder, and I just mix it with water as a liquid. I get like a bag of it like this. That lasts me a year. I don't really use very much of it.
Okay, perfect. Where do you purchase it?
I purchase it from someone who had a shop, a separate shop, and he also distributes to UFC fighters. So he does more testing on it and stuff. I don't just go to like any tobacco shop, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, just talk to me a little bit about the labeling. Do you get it in a labeled type can, or do you get it in a
I get it in a
bag?
labeled packet. Yes.
And tell me a little bit about the labeling. What does it? What kind of information is on the label?
It will tell the strain of the kratom. There's not very much variations of it. There's white and green and red, and they all have like mild varying benefits. So I guess it just pretty much depends on how your body adapts to it. I believe the red is a little more soothing. It's for more people that have like anxiety and such. And the whites and the greens, which was what I mostly get, is good for spasms and pain.
Okay, so, and I guess that leads me to my next question is, and if you don't know, that's okay, because we're all trying to get educated as to what people are consuming and what these labels say and what's on the market. So you talk about the 3 different colors.
Yeah, there's like 4 different colors or
Do
something.
you
yeah.
know, according to those colors and according to the labels, is there other chemicals or substances inside that can that go along, that they pair up with the kratom?
Well, I think that's why I'm saying that maybe there should be some kind of regulation. I had seen I got to take his word because there's no real like regulation as a whole, but he says that he tests the product that he has and that there's no contamination otherwise. If you watch the movie A Leaf of Faith, there's another distributor called Something Ice, and they talk about the rigorous tests that they do on the kratom. But because it's expensive and because it's fairly unregulated otherwise, there's no real way to tell. And yeah, there's always a possibility that something is laced or whatever, but again, 8 to 10 years, I haven't had an experience like that.
Right, but yeah, but what you're saying is you don't know 100% unequivocally for sure what's in there. So
We don't know what's in CVS either, really.
you understand what some of our struggles are and the challenges in
Yes.
trying to bring about the right law for the county. But your testimony is very helpful.
Yeah.
We do not, we don't want to preclude from people from getting something that's helping them, but we also want to protect the public from chemicals that you may or may not know what you're consuming. So I
Right.
think that's the struggle here. Labeling is a big part of it. Again, and I'll speak for myself as the sponsor, I'm not in favor of an all-out ban, but there are so many chemicals, alkaloids, and other substances that we are finding that's out on the market that's being sold along with kratom.
Right.
And so this legislature has to take a stand. It's just a matter of how we get to that point. And the legislature has been fantastic in allowing people to come here and give the testimony so that we can learn. But I think we're getting pretty close to somewhere where we want to be. And again, not precluding people from getting the natural leaf. But we do have to take a stand. So I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you. I appreciate that too, because again, the alternative is opiates that didn't really work, and they're dangerous. There's just Tylenol and NSAIDs, which destroy the intestinal lining. It was very hard to find an alternative that actually worked for what I deal with. And there's definitely a pain epidemic that has to be addressed. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you. Legislator Formica, one more question, ma'am.
Oh,
Sorry, I'm over
yeah,
here.
sure, no problem, yes.
So just a little clarity on something you said. The actual one that you take comes in a bag, it's a powdered form, right?
Yes.
On the labeling portion, does it say, or you're just taking the person's word for it, that it's straight kratom natural leaf?
There is a label on the package, if that's what you mean, yeah.
No, that's not what I mean. What I'm saying is, does the package say that it's just the kratom leaf? There's nothing added to it? Is that what the powder says?
Yes, it says it's just the kratom leaf.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Formica. Anybody else? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, Andrew Kolodny. Andrew? Hello, sir. How are you?
Hi, my name is Dr. Andrew Kolodny.
I'm sorry, doctor. I just said Andrew. I apologize.
It's okay. My name is Dr. Andrew Kolodny. I'm an addiction medicine specialist practicing here in Suffolk County. I'm also the medical director of the Opioid Policy Research Collaborative at Brandeis University. When I first started treating opioid addiction more than 20 years ago, nearly all of the patients I was treating, their addiction began with prescription opioids, a few with heroin. Today, the patients that I'm treating, all of them who have recently become opioid addicted, they became opioid addicted taking kratom powders, capsules, and kratom extracts. Some of them ultimately moved on to the 7-hydroxy products, but it was the kratom powders that got them addicted. I can appreciate that making decisions when you hear from people who say that it's helping them and people who say that it's harmful can be very difficult for all of you, which is why I think looking at the science is critical. What we know from the science is that kratom contains opioids. This was determined by FDA in 2018 after a study, and they issued a public statement, quote, "Kratom isn't just a plant, it's an opioid." The fact that kratom is an opioid explains why people addicted to kratom are receiving the same treatments we use for addiction to prescription opioids and heroin and fentanyl. These patients, or many of them, are winding up on buprenorphine. Because kratom is an opioid, we know that the potential benefits that people report are generally short-lived. If you take an opioid on a daily basis, tolerance and dependence limit the long-term benefit. Although many people who take opioids chronically feel it's helping them, we do not have good medical evidence that long-term use of opioids helps people. The Sacklers spent 20 years trying to prove that they couldn't. What the science tells us about the benefits, that's what it tells us about the benefits of kratom. As for the risks, we know that between 2020 and 2024, more than 5,200 Americans died from kratom-involved overdoses. This notion that if you take a large dose, you'll just vomit is false. That is misinformation. People are dying from mitragynine toxicity. The fact that kratom is an opioid is the reason that the DEA and FDA attempted to ban it in 2016 and 2018. The science tells us there's been a 1,300% increase in hospitalizations involving kratom. We know that it causes addiction. It's been associated with seizures, heart attacks, liver toxicity. It is not a safe product, and it is not legally imported into the United States. There is an FDA import ban, which means all of the kratom that's coming into the United States is coming in illegally. A bill that just removes a small slice of kratom products would be a big win for an industry that's deceptively selling its products and illegally bringing it into the United States. And it would be a huge loss for the people of Suffolk County and for public health. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. We have a few questions. Legislator Kennedy and then Legislator Richburg.
Thank you, Doctor, for coming out and speaking on this. I read a short blurb in one of the papers that said kratom use in adolescents has increased. It's over 50%. Do you have stats on any increases in the use?
The data on kratom consumption in the United States is not good. We don't have good public health surveillance right now, but what we do know is that kratom consumption is increasing rapidly. Hard to know which specific age groups. And we know that along with the increase in consumption is a parallel increase in public health problems associated with kratom. That's what we saw with the prescription opioid crisis. As consumption went up, millions of people around the country became addicted.
It's an opioid agonist, correct?
It's an opioid agonist, which is exactly right, which is why it's an opioid.
Yeah.
If a drug activates the opioid receptor, it's an opioid.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Legislator Kennedy. Minority Leader Richburg.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. So you mentioned that there is a ban on kratom coming into the United States?
That's correct. The FDA in 2014 issued an import alert, which means that all of the kratom that's coming into the United States from abroad is coming in illegally unless there's a specific FDA approval, and there isn't. So it does not come into the United States legally. It comes in because it's either labeled as something not for human consumption or it comes in by luck.
Okay, so, but we have these kava shops, they're in smoke shops, they're in a number of other places as well. So how are these folks allowed to get kratom in?
So my understanding is that when if it's at the border and the FDA can catch it, it is immediately seized. Once it gets into the United States, at that point, the authority for the FDA to really do anything, it becomes much more limited.
So, but do we have these drinks that have kratom in it as well? And some of those are manufactured in the United States. So I'm confused because this is actually the first I'm hearing. I don't know if anybody else has heard this before, but this is the first I'm hearing of it. So if this is an illicit, illegal drug that's banned, how is it able to, how are we able to have any businesses able to use it?
So just to be clear, in 2014, the FDA issued an import alert, which means it's illegal for the drug to come into the United States. The FDA also attempted to ban kratom nationally by making it a Schedule I drug. That effort failed, in large part because of the kratom industry had enough influence to block the FDA and the DEA from banning it. So it is not a Schedule I drug in the Federal Controlled Substances Act in the United States, but when it comes into the United States, it's coming in illegally.
Okay, so but if I'm a a kratom shop or what have you, so how am I ordering the stuff if it's a banned import?
I believe they're buying it from someone who has brought it into the country illegally.
Okay, I mean, Mr. Presiding Officer, I guess if I'd love to have some more information on this, maybe from an owner or something, how they order kratom, because it sounds like this is a larger issue than we knew yesterday.
Duly noted. Legislator Lund.
Thank you. Can you, over here. Hello. You said, can you go back to, I'm going to butcher this, Madigadine toxicity? Is that the?
Metragenine.
Metragenine, okay.
Yes.
Can you just talk about that real quick?
Sure. So within kratom leaf powders, the most abundant opioid is metragenine. And so that's pure kratom, unadulterated. It is mostly metragenine. That's the main opioid molecule. And when somebody consumes metragenine, it actually gets converted in our liver to a more potent form, which is 7-hydroxymetragenine. Our liver does that. That can be done through oxidation. As you know, there's a process where you can chemically treat metragenine to make 7-hydroxy products. But every time a human consumes metragenine, our liver converts it into 7-hydroxymetragenine, which explains the opioid effect that people get when they take it. We have many deaths throughout the United States in which the medical examiner has ruled the death metragenine toxicity, poisoning from metragenine. This is where people have taken a large dose of metragenine, and it can cause a death through the classic respiratory depression route that we see with other opioids, especially when mixed with sedatives, other drugs that slow down breathing. But metragenine itself has been linked to heart attacks. It affects heart rhythms. It's something called QT prolongation. So it can also cause sudden cardiac death.
So it is a reason and a contributing factor to deaths.
So what we know right now from a CDC data set called SUITORS is that there were 5,200 kratom-involved deaths. Some of these deaths were just kratom. Many of these deaths involved kratom and other drugs. One of the things that metragenine does is it has multiple drug interactions because of the way that it's metabolized by the liver. So if people have other drugs in their system, including antidepressants,
Prescription drugs.
over-the-counter drugs like diphenhydramine can interact with metragenine and cause a death.
Can you send myself, I don't know if anyone else does, with those 5,200 deaths, can you send that link to the site?
Yes, what I can do, actually, I'll send a link to the SUITORS, but what I'll do is share with you a paper in the peer-reviewed medical literature where that number was reported. And it's a very important paper for all of you to see, because what they did in this study was they compared states that have banned kratom to states that have regulated kratom using the Kratom Consumer Protection Act to states that have completely unregulated kratom. And they compared these three different ways of tackling this problem, and they looked at the deaths in these different states, and that's where they said total was about 5,200. But what they found in this study was that it was only the states that had banned kratom that had substantially fewer deaths. States that had gone the regulation route were no better off than states with completely unregulated kratom. And I can just tell you, I was in Georgia recently. Georgia went the regulation route. They have one of the strictest KCPA legislation in the country. Georgia is number one in the country for kratom deaths, total number of deaths. And they're number two if it's per capita. West Virginia beats them there. But attempting to regulate kratom rather than ban it does not appear to be working anywhere in the country.
Is with those 5,200 deaths, were they able to delineate between that powder form that we know has the 7-OH on it compared to what some are saying, the natural leaf that doesn't have, or at least doesn't have as much 7-OH? Are we able to see any difference there?
Sort of. What's reported there are that these are kratom-involved deaths, so we can't really figure it out. Maybe one could go into the toxicology reports and study that and answer that question. But what we do know is that the 7-hydroxy products didn't really hit the market until 2023. They were not widely available until very recently. But poisonings, deaths, hospitalizations have been rising for a decade. So it's impossible to blame all of the problems that we're hearing about on the 7-hydroxy products. The timeline does not fit.
And you said that kratom goes to, I may have misheard you, does kratom go to the opioid receptors?
That kratom contains opioid molecules that bind to and activate opioid receptors, which means that these are opioids.
Okay, and then I'm looking, it says FDA does not have a blanket federal ban on natural whole leaf kratom, but it does not approve kratom for any medical use and has issued alerts to block it. And I guess you don't have any more information on how does it get into the country if it's got this block on it. So I guess it's just a question like the minority leader was stating, just try to get more information on that. I don't know if you could speak further to it.
I'm not an expert on this. My understanding is that it's able to get into the United States despite FDA's import alert in two routes. One, it's either intentionally mislabeled as something not for human consumption, which is a felony, or it comes in by luck. There are so many shipments that come into the United States that it just doesn't get picked up.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Lennon. Legislator Salmon.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. Just a couple quick questions. When you talked about the addictive qualities and the folks that you're seeing in your practice, are you screening when people come in between the synthetic versus the natural leaf to know the difference in what your patients have consumed?
No, and just to be clear about my clinical practice, so I work at a hospital, I'd rather not say which specific hospital, here in Suffolk County. And my work in the hospital is to see patients at the bedside when there's an addiction problem or a psychiatric problem. And I've been called to cases of patients admitted to the hospital for a medical problem or a surgical problem or a psychiatric problem. And during the admission, the patient went into full-blown opioid withdrawal. And it was baffling to the providers because when the patients came into the hospital on urine tox, they were negative for opioids, yet they're going through opioid withdrawal, no different from what a heroin user would experience. The patients were telling their providers they think it had something to do with the fact that they had stopped taking their kratom. These were the cases that I've been called to evaluate. And in some of these cases, the patients were currently taking kratom leaf products or the kratom extracts. In other cases, the patients were taking 7-hydroxy products. But in all of the cases, they had started with the powdered products and then ultimately moved to more potent or more concentrated forms, which is what you see with opioid addiction. Because of tolerance, people need larger and larger doses to get the same effect, so they'll seek more potent products.
Okay, I appreciate that. I still don't think it's clear to me. We've had a number of folks from the medical community testify whether or not whether there's real data being collected on the difference between someone who's taken the synthetic versus someone who's taken the natural leaf. It seems that in some cases, people are coming in and saying, I took kratom, but they're not necessarily specifying. And I think that's important to this decision.
What I actually am very interested in the question that you're asking. So when I treat a patient, I ask them specifically what they're using. And in some cases, I have a family member take a photograph and text me what they were using, so I have a sense of the products that they were using. And what I'm sharing with you is that their addiction begins with a kratom leaf product or kratom, and then often they'll move to the kratom extracts, not the 7-hydroxy extracts, and a subset will move on to the 7-hydroxy. Many continue using the kratom products.
So I guess and this will be my final question. I guess the question I have is, and I understand it's anecdotal and not evidence-based per se, but we've had tons of people who've come in and talked about the therapeutic uses of kratom and how it's benefited them, whether it's pain management, whether it's anxiety and focus and other circumstances in their lives, who have talked about how prior to its usage, they were prescribed lots of things that made them much sicker and much more unwell, and who feel that this product has enabled them to manage their lives and improve their quality of life. And I'm wondering what you would say about that.
I think that's a terrific question. I'm glad you're asking. Those anecdotes, those personal accounts of benefit are the same accounts that we would hear from people throughout the prescription opioid crisis. In fact, every time there was an effort by FDA or regulatory body to do something about the OxyContin problem, you had testimony from people who were swearing that OxyContin was the best thing that ever happened to them. And some of these people were potentially paid to be there, but many of them were sharing, were being truthful. They were saying that this is really helping them, and they were being honest about that. They really did believe that it's helping them. Yet, all of the research studies that Purdue tried to sponsor, they could never find proof that it helped people. And I think the explanation for that is the way opioids work. If you take an opioid every day, what happens is almost within a few days, you become physiologically dependent on it, which means that when your dose is wearing off, you are feeling mild withdrawal symptoms, which include an increase in anxiety, an increase in pain. You're feeling awful as your dose is wearing off. Every regular kratom user, someone who's taking kratom a couple of times a month, that's another story. But if you're talking about a daily kratom user, someone who's doing it 2 or 3 times a day, which is what most kratom users are doing, when they wake up in the morning, they're already feeling withdrawal symptoms. They take their first dose of kratom and they feel much better. And many of them are convinced this means the drug is helping them, when in reality, it's not relieving an underlying pain problem or mental health problem. It's treating the withdrawal, the increase in pain, the pain hypersensitivity caused by the withdrawal, the drug wearing off.
That's helpful. I think that it's interesting that you just say that, because I don't think the testimony that we've heard, that this legislature has heard, has been folks who are taking it 2 and 3 times a day. From what's been shared with us, it's, not that at all. So I'm just struggling a little bit with the difference here. I mean, I think, we know that alcohol kills, far more people than many of the other things we're talking about here today, and yet we're not trying to ban alcohol in the county. And so when we're making a decision that has this much import, I think it's really important to understand, the data and the subsets of who we're talking about.
Again, you're bringing up another really excellent point. Now, something that we have to understand is that opioids are not like alcohol. Opioids are highly addictive. Alcohol, risky drinking has a public health problem, but alcohol addiction only really affects about 10% of the population. Most people can use alcohol on a regular basis without getting addicted to it. With highly addictive drugs, it doesn't work that way. Almost anyone who's using it on a regular basis can easily become addicted. And I agree with you, if you get an account from somebody who does kratom or any opioid on a rare basis, it's probably not going to harm them that much. They're not going to get addicted to it. But those are not the typical kratom users. We know from surveys of kratom users that are published in the literature that the average kratom user, we know, in fact, the amount that they're using, it's about 5 grams of kratom powder in a day. So that's, and actually, the average person is dosing themselves about 2.7 times a day. So the people who give you reports of it helping them and they use very infrequently, they are not the typical users. Again, this is a highly addictive drug. It doesn't work like alcohol.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Doctor, how are you? A couple of questions. When you were talking about, and it's funny that we brought this up, but you talked about testimony during the opioid crisis, and I followed that very, very closely. And then we found out that more than 65% of those people were actually paid to give that testimony by the pharmaceutical companies. So I don't know how much stock we can put into the testimony about whether or not, this drug was helping them when the pharmaceutical companies knew what it was actually doing to the people they were selling, but they were making billions of dollars off killing people. So they didn't really want to bring that up. So if it's illegal, why isn't the FDA scheduled this drug? I'm just curious. Have your colleagues written letters to the FDA? Have you tried to intervene in the process of scheduling?
So I personally didn't become active on this issue until recently. I hadn't been seeing patients for a little while. I'd been focusing on my research and my teaching. I went back to seeing patients again here in Suffolk County about 1 year ago and was just blown away by how much the landscape had changed.
Right.
And so that's when I've become active in this issue. But I can answer the question. The FDA did what the Controlled Substances Act requires for scheduling of a drug. It's something called an 8-factor analysis. They put that together, they submitted it, and the effort by the FDA was blocked largely because of a concern around 2016, 2018 about fentanyl. There was a fear that if we get rid of kratom, which is being used by many people with opioid addiction, that it would make the overdose deaths involving fentanyl worse. Get rid of kratom, more people will die from fentanyl. That was the argument that seemed to win the day back when the FDA was overruled. We now actually have data
I'm sorry, just real quick. When you say the FDA was overruled, by who?
by the Assistant Secretary of Health for HHS. Admiral Brett Giroir overruled the FDA. And in his letter of overruling them, one of the main points he made was he was concerned that banning kratom would make the opioid crisis worse. We now have data to answer the question of whether or not that was the right call, because again, we have some states that have banned it, some states that where it's been totally legal, and we can compare what's happened over time. And we now know that in states that banned it, they have not fared worse. In fact, one state that banned kratom, going back, I think, to 2017.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you're talking about state bans. We're a county, so we can't ban anything statewide. So say the ban, and this is just hypothetical, went to effect on Long Island. I mean, what stops anybody from driving right into New York City, buying as much kratom as they want, and then bringing it out here?
Well, just in terms of making the opioid crisis worse, the point is that banning kratom will not make the opioid crisis worse based on the data that we have.
Yeah, I haven't
But
read that
agree
literature,
with
so
you.
I can't have that conversation.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you ban it, someone can drive into New York City. They can't drive into Nassau County, though, which means that we have a pretty broad geographic area where kratom is more difficult to get, which means, I believe, less people becoming addicted to it. For people who really want it, people who are already addicted, they'll get it or they'll get some other opioid. We have to try and help those people. But I think we really need to prevent more people from developing the condition of opioid addiction. And if you ban kratom in Suffolk County, there is no doubt that fewer people on Long Island will become addicted to this drug.
Interesting. And I'm just curious, because, as a civil libertarian, I always think about this. Are we creating a black market, or are we going to make this so much more dangerous than it is now, outside of the addiction space, for our officers to have to deal with this, interactions with the public, raids? I mean, we've been through this in the history of this country. So I'm just curious on your take of how that would work, or the ancillary effects this could have on trying to police this.
Yeah, so, I agree, state is not a county, but we do have data from states that did this, and the states that did this are doing pretty good. So Vermont had a total ban. Vermont has had the sharpest decrease in fentanyl deaths in the country. So we really don't
That's
have
fentanyl, though, not.
all opioid deaths in the state of Vermont have decreased more than in any other state in the country, and at a faster rate, and that's a state with a total ban. But when you talk about a black market, this is a product that's coming across the border illegally, essentially what people are buying, I mean, I don't know the real definition of a black market product, but if it's coming in illegally, isn't it already a black market product?
Yeah, so I guess that's where the rubber meets the road for me, because this is the first I heard this testimony that it was illegally coming into the country. So I'm trying to figure out what the enforcement mechanism is for the federal government to come in and clean the shelves out.
So again, my understanding is that the FDA, because of that import alert, every shipment of kratom that comes to the border can be seized and sent back if they catch it. But there are millions of shipments coming in on a regular basis. It becomes impossible for the FDA to stop that. And once it's in the country, it's not a Schedule I drug for the reason that we discussed.
Right. But it's still, yeah, so that's where my confusion lies right now. It's still illegal, but it's not illegal once it enters the interior.
It's in a gray area, I guess.
Right. Right, that's interesting. And what would you say is more addicting, kratom or nicotine?
They're both highly addictive drugs, but you can ask two different researchers. Some would say that nicotine is the more addictive drug, but I think most addiction researchers would say that opioids are more addictive than nicotine for the main reason that
What kills more people every year?
I would say that nicotine, well, tobacco products probably kill more people, but opioids are more addictive and more life-altering. Opioid addiction is a disease that doesn't just affect an individual, it affects their family, it affects their community. It's in many ways a much more severe disease than nicotine addiction, but tobacco products, I would bet, kill far more people.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Legislator Mazzarella.
And I know that there's no data on this, but give it a stab. So you talk about the folks that you're seeing, and you relate it to folks that are starting off with a powder and then progressing along to possibly other kratom products, to possibly the metrogyne, right? Metrogyne 7-OH, which is the ultimate side effect and in a lot of instances killers. So if you can, for me, from what you see, and possibly if you can extrapolate, what percentage of folks are happy drinking that cup of tea that you will never see, and those that will just use it as a gateway and progress along into that danger zone?
So I think that many people who take an adequate dose of kratom are going to feel good. Opioids make you feel good. When you take an opioid, some people, certainly the first time they do it, if they take too large a dose, they don't like it. They feel nauseous. They don't like the psychoactive effect. But most people who take just the right dose of an opioid, including kratom, there's a sense of well-being, a relief of anxiety, an improvement in your mood. Your pain can get better. They work. The reason that we don't take them every day is because of tolerance, dependence, and addiction. In order to keep getting that benefit, the dose just has to keep going up, or all you're getting is the relief of the withdrawal. And once you do it every day, you get stuck on it. It's very hard to get off without feeling really sick. And again, they're highly addictive. So, but I do think that they work for many people. There are some people with opioid addiction who can keep their dose in check. I've treated heroin users who they keep their habit at 4 or 5 bags a day. This was before fentanyl emerged. They were keeping it at 4 or 5 bags a day because they were trying to keep their tolerance in check. They didn't want their habit to get too expensive, and they were able to control it. Other people with addiction have difficulty controlling their use. You could think about some people can smoke 10 cigarettes a day and keep it in check, and others are chain smoking. So there are variations in people's ability to control their use with a highly addictive drug.
And I think that's my point precisely, and I'm not trying to choose a side one way or another. I'm just trying to, get people to think about it in the same way that you discussed, because you talked about alcohol and you say, well, it's not as addictive. And I know I enjoy a whiskey, all right? And I know I'll never be an alcoholic. And because I'm 60 years old, and I think by now I'd be an alcoholic. So I know that, right? But the point I'm trying to get at is when you talk about opioids and you talk about alcohol, and let's throw marijuana and every other substance in there, okay? There's going to be a certain segment of the population that could consume and control, and then there's going to be a certain segment of the population that consume and can't control. And I think you're going to see that across alcohol and all other substances. So, I think you'd have to agree with that, because I think that's what you're seeing.
Not exactly. I think that it really depends on the drug. Take nicotine again as an example. Yes, it's true. There are some people that can smoke a cigarette every now and then, maybe when they're having a drink. But many, and perhaps most nicotine users very easily wind up getting hooked. The people who can do it more recreationally tend to be the exception rather than the rule. With highly addictive drugs, it becomes very difficult to use it the way you're describing. With opioids, again, why opioids are really different, and I would say, and many addiction experts would say, more addictive than nicotine, is the physiological dependence that sets in. So it's not just that when you use it, there's a rewarding effect, they feel good. It's that once you're using it every day, when you try and stop, you feel very sick. And it's not the irritability that we associate with nicotine withdrawal. When you're going into opioid withdrawal, what people refer to as dope sickness, you don't just have flu-like symptoms where you feel physically awful. Your brain is reacting as if you're under threat, and we understand why this happens. But it's been described as a sense of impending doom. People feel like they're going to die when they're going into withdrawal. It's why people do desperate things to maintain their opioid supply, including, not that long ago, shooting up a pharmacy to get hydrocodone. Opioids are different than other drugs. And that's why 100 years ago, we ended prohibition on alcohol, but we kept prohibition on opioids.
I really appreciate your professional medical opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Robert Laddick. Robert?
It's a whirlwind to walk into, but let's talk about it. All right. So something concerning I saw last time. All right, let's start off. Hello again. I'm Robert Laddick, the owner of Roots Cow Bar, experienced herbalist at 13 years. Something concerning I saw last time that I was here was that I saw troves of rehabs and drug clinics lining up one after another, talking about if kratom is banned. Something that came to me in realization is that all these companies come together as like a coalition, talking about ban kratom. If they ban kratom, that's a light opioid that goes off the table and allows for more hard opioids to be prevalently used in the community, leading towards more use case and more clients that they would have. That's how I personally feel on it. But hey, everyone's perspective, I could be wrong, right? But it does seem a little odd, and I'm open to perspective. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. He sees a certain side of the industry. I see a different side. I see people come in for a weekend use. They use it responsibly. But, people come to him when they're at the ends meet. And, I'm sure a lot of this is 708 that he's seeing, which the state just went into effect, is successfully looking to ban. But realistically, it's going to be a game of whack-a-mole. Kratom is banned. Some other thing comes up. There's millions of herbs that work on the opioid receptor, including alcohol does stimulate the opioid receptor. So it's just... We need to work on education, harm reduction, and not sitting here making plants illegal. I appreciate you guys considering keeping Mother Nature illegal. Tea is a great idea, but I'm not gonna hang up on all that too much. But I'm gonna kind of talk into the bill a little bit more now. Tea is a great idea, but the method of consumption that makes sense is standardized kratom extracts infused into canned beverages. That's the only way our health department allows it to be served is in a prepackaged container for a dietary supplement to be served in a food establishment. So the tea method, for some people, they're willing to risk getting a fine from the health department, but that's not something that we're willing to do as a small business. That those fines could seriously impact us and put us out of business and make us close our doors. You know, the way that a lot of the industry does it is they have a mitragine extract, which is the basic kratom alkaloid. It's extracted to a standardized dosage, so it's like 100 milligrams per drink or 25 milligrams per drink, and that's done in a way that if you have natural kratom leaf and you're consuming it that way, it could be anywhere from 1% to 2% to 3%, so you don't know the dose you're getting. If you have a standardized extract of normal kratom, that is a method that you can do to make sure you're getting the right dose. So that is what I'm really pushing for is extract infused drinks in certain caps if you guys want. But essentially that has to be done to make sure people know the dose that they're getting and not just randomly taking a leaf and getting a random dose. I just want to clear up something that we were talking about. He was saying there's 200 deaths a year from kratom. I've talked with some of you guys about this, and you guys have done your research before talking with me, is that all these deaths are polydrug use. They're not individual deaths of kratom. They're used in conjunction with other opioids, and that's what the overdoses are coming from. I looked at 55K opioid deaths a year for the 200. I think the beeping's me, it's done, right?
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
cool.
Sorry, your time's up.
Yeah,
There's
appreciate
questions.
you.
There's
Yeah.
questions. Bernardo Lee, Richburg.
How you doing, sir? You said you own your own shop? So the testimony that was brought up just recently is that there is a federal import ban.
So there's a lot of things that aren't GRAS approved, I guess. I was actually looking it up while he said that. It's not something I was aware of at the moment, but it seems like, I guess if there's an herbal supplement that's not GRAS approved, generally regarded as safe, the studies are being conducted now. I guess they say like they give people importing issues. We've never dealt with any issues like that or been contacted or anything like that. Neither have any of the companies we've dealt with personally. Maybe it's something that a policy was implemented on, but it's not enforced.
Okay, so when you go to order your product, you're ordering it from outside the United States, am I correct?
No, we have a prepackaged, lab-tested material that we get, because we're only allowed prepackaged. The way the health department allows it is prepackaged drinks only to be served at our establishment.
So you're saying the health department and the county health department or the state health
Correct.
department?
County health department.
Okay,
Yep.
so you order it from a location inside the United States?
Correct.
China.
And then, so when you order this, product, do you know where they get their product from?
Everything that we get has to have a COA, which is certification of analyzation. So everything has the mitragine tested. It's the way that the banking systems allow us to even do business. In this industry, you can't really do any type of work with this unless you have active recent lab testing on the material that you're getting.
Okay, so, and that's at your establishment, but obviously if you're a gas station or you fall under a different law, am I correct?
If they're banking with it, then no.
Okay. And so, but you can't attest to exactly what country or where?
It all comes from Indonesia. That's where it's mostly came from. They actually just regulated over there for export just recently through the government. So it's just a matter of like.
To the government of Indonesia, not the United States government.
Well, the Indonesia just allowed it for export and exported licenses and permits over the last 2 or 3 years and stuff like that. So they're seeing that it is a financially gainful thing. They see that's a market and they're opening the doorways to proper export. So I guess it's a matter of our state coming on board. But this kind of comes into a lot of things where there's a weird gray area. New herbs that come in the market that if they're not used frequently, like we explore all different herbs. I have e-commerce where we'll touch base on various different herbs. Some of them aren't used as frequently and they're imported as a botanical, not as a supplement. That's kind of what he's talking about. It's like kratom is a botanical product, but it's not a supplement yet because it hasn't went through GRAS, which is generally regarded as safe by the FDA yet. So it's in the processes of that where it's not approved yet. So they don't have it as a technical use case as a dietary supplement at the moment. But that doesn't mean that states haven't approved it that way, such as Florida and Rhode Island, which have just regulated as dietary supplement use cases and proper licensing.
So I guess learning today that there's possibly, and I just looked up on the FDA website.
Yeah, I just looked at it as well too.
There is an import ban. So does that give you any pause?
Import warning. No, because it's about the dietary use case, right? So it's not really, I personally don't have pause with that because the laws are in place here in our state that allow kratom sales. I get from within the United States. That's not something that in my logistical frame of mind that I have to worry about personally.
Okay, thank you
Yeah.
very much.
There's also an import ban on Cuban cigars. Let us say it for Mike.
Thank you.
Wait, don't go away. Don't go away.
I guess.
How you doing?
Hey, what's going on?
So, before I ask you a couple of questions, so you're basically coming to us as someone who's a shop owner. You have no medical background or anything like that,
I'm an
correct?
herbalist of 13 years.
You're an herbalist.
Correct.
Okay. Who's regulating your kava bar at the moment? Like, who
lot of
comes in other than the health department?
Correct. The health department definitely does have regulations. We touch base on how we can serve and can't serve. But also, surprisingly, the banking system has a large play in how we are able to operate. Like I said, all the products that we have to have those lab tests coming in, and they have to be active lab tests within whatever a month time frame or 3-month time frame. Surprisingly, the banks work very hand in hand with us to make sure that we're operating in a regulated framework.
So walk me through that. What does a bank have to do with regulating what you're?
Okay, so let's say we want to sell kratom. We go to a banking, would they say, okay, all right, show us all the lab tests and all the products you guys are bringing in. We need photos, inventory of all the products. We need sourcing of all the products you guys are getting from. We send them all that. We send them all the lab testing that we have on that, showing there's no 7-OH, showing that the exact percentage of metrogene, showing that there's no pesticides, that there's no contaminants, that there's no E. coli. Heavy metals, and then we have to submit all those testing with all that data to the bank to even be able to sell this product.
And who in your bar specifically, in your kava bar?
Yeah.
Who's responsible for regulating how many drinks a person can have? Is there a time frame?
We
Is there
do.
signage?
Yeah,
How do you guys regulate
We have
it?
multiple signages, 3 different posted areas, front, like on both sides of the building. We train our staff. I'm gonna call them, just turn that off. So we train our staff to make sure that, 25 milligrams is a standard dosage. People that are more experienced could go up to 100 milligrams. That's our cap. We don't really allow over 100 milligrams. I think it was the FDA or some research study that showed 85 milligrams and under doesn't have any type of habitual habit-forming properties. And we do notice that, consumers that have had too much compare it no more than caffeine. They're in the mood for it, but that's all. If they're having 7-OH, it's a different story, which me and my wife, who is the manager over there, we've never condoned and don't support the 7-OH. I get 7-OH as a harm reduction tool for people that are on fentanyl, but that's a whole different story that I'm not here to argue today. So, yeah.
So who decides, you just said that for an experienced user, they could go as high as 100.
Yep.
Who decides who's experienced, who's a novice?
Regulars, we would not give that to anyone that is our first time seeing. Someone that we've come in, seen, they've had 25 milligrams, they have a 50 milligram, they may have 100 milligram on their 3rd month or 8th month of being with us in business, and we've seen them 10, 15, 20 times before or something like that, so.
So you're just basing it off your own personal, what you feel someone is capable of handling?
Yeah, you kind of feel out, just the same as a bartender. They have to kind of make that judgment depending on how much that person is able to consume, how often that person comes there, when to cut that person off. The bartender does the same thing that, our kava bar and staff would be trained to do as well.
And my last question to you is, does the tea or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
Does it affect everyone the same way? In other words, like if you have a 300-pound person having a drink and someone who weighs 110 pounds?
You're absolutely right. It does not. Someone who's lighter weight, someone who's heavier set and says, oh, I take a 100 milligram edible. Okay, all right, well, you could maybe try the 50 milligram. See how you feel. Okay. Now you can have the other 50 milligram if they're a 300-pound set person, for sure. Compared to someone thinner, might be 25 milligram. But this is something that we have staff meetings with about our team on a monthly, bi-monthly basis, informing of new products we come in. This is a high-potency product. This is not these are for our regulars that are used to these type of experiences, and to start with a half a dose and stuff like that. So something that we feel very ethical and moral about. We want to do this a proper way. We really do believe in plant freedoms and having accessibility. And again, this is just a game of whack-a-mole that's been going on for ages. The war on drugs, it's not ending. It's never gonna. It's just harm reduction, education, and handling it in different ways. If this is a safer alternative that has a lower chance of overdose rate, and it's something that should be allowed and in accessible formats. That's something what I'm here to argue today is just changing the bill to allow for canned drinks so we don't go out of business. Because the teas, I'm not willing to risk the fines with the health department, and we would have to go out of business, unfortunately. And I appreciate you guys trying to work with us and keeping the plant legal. So thank you to you all.
Thank you for answering my
Yeah,
questions.
yeah. Yeah, sure.
Legislator Kennedy and Legislator Lennon.
Hello, thank you for coming out again.
Oh, I appreciate
Answer
you.
all of our questions.
Oh, absolutely.
You were just speaking about how in one drink has 25 milligrams or 100 milligrams.
Correct.
Of what? Of
Oh,
kava? Of the-
mitragine, so that's the active
Okay.
compound. Yeah, most of
All
the
right.
drinks do use a standardized extract. It's not the 7-OH mitragine. That's the
Right,
one that is, what, 20 or 60 times the affinity rate of normal kratom.
Mm-hmm.
This is just regular generic, the main active compound, mitragine. Yeah.
And from what I've read,
Yeah.
there's, as the woman before you had said, there's red stem and white stem and
Correct.
whatever, and that has
Yeah.
to do with the drying process. But that also increases the amount of nitrogen.
So there's multiple different alkaloids. You know, you count up to 11 or 12 different alkaloids in the plant. There's only maybe 2 or 3 that are concerning, and if I have the time to speak with you guys, I could let you guys know, be on the cutting edge of other ones that may be problematic. There's 2 others aside from 7-OH. There's a synthetic one that's completely man-made, and then there's pseudo, which is another one that could be something to talk about and put into the bill. But the other ones are benign, and they have medical properties that show lowers inflammation or more focusing or more stimulating, and those are the ones that are the white vein, the red vein, because they have higher concentration of speciosa and these other ones like that, but they're not as problematic as, say, 7-OH.
Is there any literature that you could send us? So we can read
Absolutely,
it?
yeah,
Would be
100%.
great.
Yeah, I'll
Thank
just
you.
forward it over to your guys' offices.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Thank you. Over here.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate you calling out.
All right. So you said you have to send out to a lab to get tested, correct?
Us or the companies that we purchase from, correct. So
Are
we have
you,
to
are you sending it out to a lab?
Sometimes we do, if it's like a bulk extract or something like that. But most of the time, the companies that we work with, they have up-to-date testing that we have done through third-party labs that we do work with and have good relations with as well, so.
What labs are you using?
ACS Laboratories, G4 Analytics is actually based out of a university in North Carolina, and they do a lot of research and stuff like that. So we like to support them and have good relations there.
So with the import of the leaf, it comes from Southeast Asia, it was Philippines, is that correct?
Indonesia, but it's
Indonesia.
Yeah, Southeast Asia type culture, exactly.
So I just did quick research. I got to look into this further. We just heard this new information about an FDA import alert. Is an official notification advising there's enough evidence to warrant what's called detention without physical examination for certain imported products. It's an automatic hold on goods, manufacturers, or entire countries. And the FDA has a detention without physical examination for imported kratom products. So I'm wondering, when you get your kratom products, are you getting it from in a package that says manufactured or anything like that? Does it say what country it's coming from? Does it say it's from the USA? Does it say?
So pretty much all the kratom is either Indonesia or Thailand for the most part. When we get it, it's processed, the extract, put into drinks by companies in, like, let's just say Louisiana, shipped out to us. So we really kind of just deal with like a lot of the end retail products that are brought in.
So you're getting it from somebody else, and do you know what it says on the label, where it's coming from?
It's just distributed, manufactured here in Louisiana.
So whoever you're getting it from is getting it imported from another country.
Yeah.
And that's where the FDA import alert is. And that's where maybe the issue is, it's not you, because you're
Correct.
going off what's on the label,
Exactly, yeah.
which seems like it's not even correct, because it really comes from another country.
And something I want to address on that too is that it's not just kratom, it's just kind of like use cases that aren't approved yet for dietary supplements. It normally has to have the GRAS approval. It's something that's super controversial, a lot of research on both ends with the kratom. They haven't come to a determination with that yet. Many herbs we see that we work with that are not GRAS approved and technically for import could be problematic, but it's not anywhere where it's like a finable offense or any type of trouble. It's just like, this isn't allowed to come in. We're disposing of it or something like that,
Okay, so, and then you said you get lab testing done with other manufacturers and producers. Do you know what labs they're using?
ACS is a big one. G4 Analytics, Phytodex. These are all great labs.
But these are,
Yeah.
are these specific labs for herbal supplements, or are they labs that do testing across the board of multiple things, such as like a Quest Diagnostics, LabCorp?
Correct. So G4 does that. They do testing across the board. Some of the other ones are more cultured into the space of kratom or kava or, stuff like that.
So these labs are not specific to herbal supplements. They do across the spectrum testing?
Two of the ones I said are specific to kratom and herbal supplements. The other one, G4, is across the board. They do a lot of cutting edge research into just anything.
And do you know where they get their certification to be a lab that does this testing?
G4 is part of a college university in North Carolina.
Which university?
I don't have that information off the top of my head, unfortunately.
Okay. All right, that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys' time. Thank you.
Of course. Last speaker, Joseph, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, sir. Come on down.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's all right. Take your time.
Thank you.
Only because you're a Yankee fan.
Okay. I went to the game Sunday for Father's Day. My
Oh,
family
nice.
treated me a little,
Attaboy.
and they lost. I don't know if it's because of me
You
or
can't
not,
win them all. You can't win
but
them all.
You can't win them all. I don't know how to use this thing. I'm okay? All right, thank you very much. I'm going to take my hat off to you, gentlemen. I want to thank you for allowing me to be here today and tell a little bit of my story. I'm no expert on kratom. Probably many more people in the room know a heck of a lot more about it than me. But I know myself, and I know what being a 70-year-old man is like now. And I know I'm somebody who has used kratom in the past, a little tiny bit. And I also was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease about 6 months ago. So if you see me shake, I'm just rattling and rolling here. Anyway, getting to the kratom, I was introduced to kratom about 5 years ago by, I was going to say a young lady, but she's really older than me. She's 72 now. Mary Kay. I'm just going to use first names for my friends. And she used kratom for aches and pains of being 2 years older than me. So she told me about it, and we'd go out to dinner with people our own age, our friends and our peers. And we talk about what most older people talk about, and part of that is having aches and pains and having a body that's older, So kratom came up, and I learned about it. And she said, you could try it, Joe. It might help a little. And I did. She gave me the names of some vendors. I think one of them, when I used it, was First Coast Tea. I don't know where they are, but I had gotten it from her. And I bought a little bit of it. It came in a pouch with the name of it on it. It was supposed to be all tested. And you take a spoonful of it and you put it, like, you ever see those little orange juice bottles, the smaller ones, where you pour something, you drink some of the orange juice, you put some kratom in there, a teaspoonful, and you shake it real hard and it gets like mud. It becomes infused in the OJ. And I don't know how many people here have tasted kratom, but I'll just tell you, it tastes like dirt. So you gulp it down, and then you gulp down the orange juice as you pour it out, that you put in a little cup so you can wash the dirt out of your mouth. And you just relax for a while, and you find out that maybe certain joints don't hurt as much as they did, and certain muscles don't spasm as much, and certain crunchy parts of your body don't crunch as much when you move. And I've never taken it. I never drive after taking it. I've always just sat and watched TV and just kind of put my feet up on the ottoman and watch the Yankees. And that's about it. And I'd say I would do that maybe, no more than a couple of times a week with 1 teaspoonful of kratom and about 8 ounces of orange juice in one of those instant OJ. I don't know what they think. It's not Tropicana. It's some other brand. It comes in a bottle, and you pour some out as is, and you shake the thing up, and you gulp it down, and then you drink the orange juice as a chaser after it, and just kind of relax for a bit. So I do know a little bit about kratom and what's been in the news.
So I'm sorry, your time is up, but
Oh, it's up.
Senator Mazzarella has a question for you, okay?
Yes, sir. How can I help?
How are you, sir?
I'm okay.
All
Not
right.
bad for an old dog.
Not bad at all. You're doing well.
Thank you.
So we heard testimony earlier regarding how you feel after you're not consuming kratom any longer. And it doesn't sound like that's the case for you because you don't consume it multiple times a day.
No,
And you
never.
don't consume it every day. So let me ask you this question.
Huh.
If you're doing it 2-3 times a week, and let's just say you had some kratom on a Monday morning, and now it's Tuesday night, are you feeling like you're going through withdrawals and you feel like you're going to kill yourself?
I've never felt like I was going through withdrawals, and I want to just say that I never take it in the morning. I always take it at night, so I know I'm not driving anywhere. I'm just kind of after dinner, and I'm going to hang out, relax, and watch the Yankees. And then I go to bed.
So no suicidal feelings the next day?
None whatsoever.
Thank you.
All right, well, you're
Okay, thank
very
you so
welcome,
much.
and I thank you for allowing me to say.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Say my piece.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So long. You're welcome. Would anyone else like to speak on this public hearing? I have no more names on the list. Seeing none, I'll take a motion from Deputy Presiding Officer Mazzarello to recess. I will second that motion. Anybody on the recess motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, abstentions?
17.
Public hearing 1279 is recessed. Public hearing 1390, adopting a local law establishing the rights of first refusal for homeowners by and through a homeowner's